Alaska, Grim After Dark, starring Jon and Danny. This is Tricky Dick. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Jon and Danny. All right, and guys, I'm actually here this time, and it wasn't just a sudden awkward cut to me. I love it. Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Jon. Welcome to Grim After Dark. We're the Friendly Gaming Network's weekly interview show, where we hit the high points of the last week in the Warhammer community and talk to the best players and content creators from around the world about the one thing we all love, which is Warhammer. Tonight, we welcome Adrian Phillips from Tabletop Titans, one of the premier Warhammer content creators, an all-around nice guy, or at least I hope so. I mean, otherwise I'll be sadder than an orc player with 30 buggies in their collection currently. My co-host today needs some introduction. He's the terror of the mid-tables. He is not allowed back into the game store since his last opponent was made to feel really uncomfortable when Danny found out Necrons all have the core keyword now. It's Danny McDivett.
Hey, Jon. Luckily, they dropped the sexual assault charges too.
I was going to say, Danny, are you looking at core keywords right now?
I mean,
big changes are in the competitive 40k world, with either too many balance updates or not enough, depending on who you're subscribed to. But lots of kind of changes. So kind of what is your opinion on the changes we're seeing coming out of this balance update that we had last week?
Well, Jon, I think we're looking at some really awesome changes for the game in general. I'm pretty excited about obviously, we just talked about changes to my beloved Necrons. Let's go with some core. Gotta love it. And then some of the other changes, orcs definitely got a massive nerf. Was it too harsh?
Probably deserved.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was deserved. But making sure that people can't use models in their armies, I can understand the validity of that argument as being a rough standby. But I don't know. I feel like this mostly just affected meta chasers, and I don't really feel too sorry for them.
That's fair. Well, it also affected Chaos players, because regardless of what happens, Chaos players are going to hate literally everything. And they found a way to take an issue with getting extra attacks for free against everyone. Someone posted this wonderful meme here saying that they wanted 2 in Marines, and the best we can do is destroy the fluff of death to the false emperor. So I guess
a classic meme there. That one will live on in my heart for a long time, Jon.
So I had 2 I wanted to show for this one, but I chose this one here because it encapsulates Chaos players so well, and just finding no joy in literally anything.
Whereas this entirely joy and toy simultaneously.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas the other one I wanted to see was there was someone was sharing like an imaginary conversation where a Chaos Marine was just like yelling. I was like, "Oh, you're a false god! I will destroy you!" And then just confused Tyranid noises underneath as this is expanded to everyone. What's your take on Chaos? Because like Flawless Host is now a huge option again. Just a lot of Assault Marines like Slaanesh is going to see a rise from this. How's your take on the Chaos update grade?
Yeah, I think there's probably some decent options that Chaos players have now. I think they probably got a little bit of a buff, but they're going to need a lot more to kind of see some time in the top tables anytime soon.
Oh, I didn't say they were going to be top tables. That's crazy.
Well, and look, it's all 100% buff. They got no nerfs. So, just all count your blessings, right?
All buff, no nerf. And yeah, Nurgle Matthew, I'm also happy being miserable with my multiple Chaos armies, which is entirely the reason I don't win and has zero to do with skill whatsoever. Quiet Danny. Joy Toy is added again as we see the Invictor in person. And I want to point out that, and if Rich, we could go back to this picture here with the Joy Toy. I did not blur that background for a cheap deal to joke whatsoever. It was blurred by Joy Toy. That's how they posted it. And B, Where could I buy that Joy Toy T-shirt? Because I really want that. I feel it would just add to our grim dark meta right over here. Anyway, the adorable baby is fantastic, and seeing it in person actually makes me want to get it even more. I joked
Yeah.
with one of our friends, Danny, that he can take his little like titty anime figures and put it inside of Invictor. What is your kind of thoughts on the Invictor as we see it here?
It's really cool. I don't know if I'll get the Invictor, but I'm for sure getting the Librarian that they previewed a little while ago. That thing is awesome.
Yeah, they're super cool coming out, and we'll say all of these guys are limited releases. So once they are done, they are gone. So if you want one, get on it, and please buy me one. Um, anyway, painting advice straight from Discord. Danny, we're both in the Discord with a very talented painter, and I need to share this with you. People have asked me how to paint faces and models, so I have a step-by-step guide if you want to see it. So we see this first picture here, which is base coat the face in a dark reddish brown. I used a 50-50 mix of red ochre and magenta. And then step 2, paint the rest of the fucking face. This person is an obscenely skilled painter, but I'm happy that instead of watching like 30-minute tutorials by Louise on Warhammer Plus, I can just do it. That's the plan there.
It's pretty great.
It's a pretty great plan.
I'm gonna try that method. I think.
What? Just do it.
Yeah, just paint the rest of the fucking face. I'm gonna do that.
Coward, just do it. Amazing. Last week, scandal in the internet community here, Danny.
What happened, John?
Our very own Val Heffelfinger, creative director extraordinaire, replicated the old one Necron War in Heaven with his very own War on Greg's. Greg Chassain, Goonhammer writer and genuinely nice guy, unfortunately listens to this trash show and responded. When he said, top 8 Greg here. I wasn't intending to clown in the ITC rankings there, but thanks for letting me know that I'm the worst, most relentless event attack. Not saying I don't deserve it, but geez.
Well, dude, we got to get Greg on here to defend himself, John.
Oh, we do. So, yeah, okay. We're definitely invite Greg. Your open invites come on and talk about it. We did want to give Val an opportunity to defend himself. He chose to not be here tonight, which we think is directly tied to this attack by Greg's.
Actions speak volumes, John. That's all I have to say about that.
This is going to be like the start of that Goonhammer FLG war. We're just stuck in the middle, or inciting. Whatever you think is best on that one there.
Yeah, John and I are like Switzerland over here, and Val is
benefiting from both sides, but not really mentioning it. Oh boy, and if you're unhappy with this, please remember YouTube has removed the dislike button, so the only way to let us know your displeasure is to like, subscribe, comment, go all the way to the end of the video and watch everything on the Frontline Gaming Network. Perfect. Hey, finally today we're going to pay some bills. So now we're going to be talking about Frontline's pre-printed terrain set. And although it's the set with a giant center room and you really need to kind of cut in half for it to be any kind of use on a table, the terrain does look incredible. And when you're like me and can't be asked painting the army, the terrain coming ready to go is a lifesaver. Specially priced for a limited time only. If you enter the promo code, this is fake, literally nothing will change and you receive an error message, courtesy of Grim After Dark.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. You're welcome. Danny, have you seen that pre-painted terrain set that's come out?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me if I've seen the error code. And I'm like, yeah, I have, John. I tried it out.
No, it's a unique error code. We guarantee it won't work.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I did check out that terrain. It's really awesome. Luckily, John, you know that big building? You don't have to glue it together. It actually comes apart in the middle.
Oh, amazing. Because all the game stores I played at just have this giant, obnoxious room in the center.
I know. I know. It won't hurt soon. It won't hurt you anymore.
Yeah, the best coupon code, thank you, Tomodachi Express, is Mob Rules Sucks. And definitely don't check out the Mob Rules YouTube channel or podcast available where everything is
also garbage.
Taken care of there. Also garbage. Danny, why don't you introduce us to our guest?
Well, honestly, this guest actually needs no introduction. Adrian has been a huge part of the online Warhammer content creators club for like quite some time with the hugely popular channel Tabletop Titans, and has been a pretty good dominating factor in the competitive scene around his hometown there and in the Bay Area. And so totally happy to welcome Adrian to the show. Welcome, Adrian.
Thanks so much. How you guys doing?
It's so good. And yeah, you are actually just back from like gallivanting across the world for Warhammer, right?
I know, right? Yeah, just back from No Retreat Legends in Gibraltar, where it was hanging out with other cool content creators, and it was amazing. Still a little bit jet
And also
lagged,
Phil.
but yeah, yeah, exactly. So it was awesome. It was great.
So yeah, tell us about that experience for that, because yeah, we're gonna go into Tabletop Titans and all that other kind of stuff earlier, but kind of
Sure.
it was like slowly released and teased, like a whole bunch of content creators just decided to fly to this little island
Right.
to play like a whole bunch of Warhammer. So how does that kind of come about?
That's a great question. So SN's done, they've kind of been known for doing their events for a number of years now. Beautiful terrain, a lot of the stuff you have to like apply to, have a good looking army, etc. And this was the first year that they decided to do one that was kind of about people that are either good players or good content creators or good painters. And so we got this like mysterious box, like I don't know, 8 months, a year ago, basically inviting us to come on down and fly down and play 5 games, hang out, raise a bunch of money for charity, which was always cool. And it was just wild. It was a whole weekend in Gibraltar, meeting these people that either I've always watched, like there's Lawrence from Tabletop Tactics there and stuff like that, or that I like kind of know from online. But it's like we're all gathered in one place in this kind of disgusting like YouTube influencer trip where we all have our phones out taking pictures and streaming to everyone.
Now, Danny and I also received a similar box, but it was more like the movie Seven than any actual invite or anything
Yeah,
else
yeah.
there.
More of a threat, actually.
Yeah, it was more they're like, please stay away.
Please do not
So,
come.
There's a couple of restraining orders with safety pins.
Yeah, yeah.
we get more invites like that than we'd really care for, and at this point, it's just sort of rude. So just please
Right?
stop. That's all we would say.
We could stop calling them invites, though, John, at some point. Anyway.
You would think, but my
Yeah.
fragile ego only allows so much at
Fair.
a time.
Yep. Same.
So you are not only known, and thank you, chat, for pointing this out here, for having great hair and an amazing hairline.
Oh.
Like just
And a
the
Hawaiian
amount
shirt for every occasion. I'll say that as well.
Oh, naturally. Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
well, for your time with Tabletop Titans. So sort of tell me your involvement in Tabletop Titans, and from maybe more of a layman thing, what even is Tabletop Titans?
Yeah, totally. So Tabletop Titans is the YouTube channel that I run with a couple other friends. Brian Pullen and Bridger Hahn and I started it. And we basically are focused around playing epic, fun games with your friends where you can play as well as possible, as competitively as possible, but still kind of have a fun, chill atmosphere. And so we stream, 3 times a week. Our main focus is on those live games where we kind of chat with chat and have a good time playing, showing off what we think are beautiful terrain, things like that. It's kind of our chance to make like the dream kind of White Dwarf live show that we always wanted when we were younger, and try to make something that people can hang out with and kind of be a bit aspirational, hopefully, for the hobby.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know personally, I don't know about you, Danny, but like my introduction to Tabletop Titans was kind of meeting Bridger and dropping him off the sketchiest hotel I think we've ever seen.
At Charity Hammer, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I said we
Poor
dropped
Bridger.
Bridger off at a hotel, and we looked off, and there was like 3 or 4 people making some kind of illegitimate deal on a top balcony and all that other stuff. to the point where Danny, I think you actually were like, "Are you going to be okay if we leave you alone here?"
Yeah. Call me when you get inside. Yeah.
Yeah. Bolt the door. That's so. Well, the funny thing is, knowing Bridger, he was still probably more comfortable there because he's very much like, he likes being the man behind the chair and all that stuff, and so he's sort of been forced to step into the limelight, much to his own chagrin. But he's definitely more comfortable, kind of hanging out at his own hotel, having his own time. So in a weird way, he was probably more
That's
comfortable
fair.
with that.
Yeah, I was going to say with probably a free access to several illicit substances at that place. It's quite a quality establishment.
Yeah.
So yeah, being like a content creator like you are and kind of having like this really great following, how strange was it for you to kind of make that switch from just kind of a player and sort of hobbyist to someone that people are actually kind of coming up and talking about and to and referencing, or if you're just kind of going online and be like, oh, why are people saying that about me?
Right. It's weird. It's still super weird to me. And especially because, there was this thing, COVID. I don't know if you heard of it, but it kind of made it so that we didn't see people for a long time, especially when the channel was kind of coming up, and then we started going to events again, and we would just get swamped. And people would one of the interesting things that would happen was people would like be like, "Oh, like I love your work, et cetera, et cetera," but then they wouldn't kind of introduce themselves. It's like, well, what's your name? Like, what's your deal? Like, I'm a human, you're a human. Let's like chat. And it was like this funny thing where like I forget that they look at me differently, because to me, like, we're just here to play Warhammer, have a good time. So it's definitely it's an adjustment, but it is cool. Obviously, I'm not gonna say like, oh no, stop giving attention. Like, don't do it. But it's fun, and there's also, of course, a responsibility, which I feel really good about how we've done everything.
Mhm.
It's about showing how we play the game and how we think the game should be played, and it's not just being a good player, but also being a kind and considering and playing to intent player, which I think, from what I've been told, we kind of have reinforced since we've actually been starting to go to events again. People say, "Oh, you guys actually do play that way. It's not a farce. You're not, horrible in person." Like, cool,
Right.
thank you, I appreciate that, because it is important to us.
Well,
Yeah, there's
yeah. So I haven't played you before, Adrian, but I have played Brian and I played Bridger.
Yeah.
And they're both awesome guys to play against. So I can only imagine the same is true for you.
Well, thank you.
I'm
I
really-
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm gonna be really sad if there's not somewhere like a reel of like B-roll and cut footage from your Tabletop Titans recordings and streamings where it's just you guys just getting really assholey with each other.
Yeah.
Being like, no, the intent was him for
Right.
being like more than 1 inch away from the wall.
You know what I was trying to do. God. Oh man. It's funny, like, I'm a very chill person, but if there's one person that could just get me, it's Brian. And you see it sometimes on stream where it's like, God, like nobody else can annoy me about this thing, just like him. So it's funny, but it's definitely there.
Is there one thing, because I know like personally, like I know Danny, when we play, one thing I do that I know it, well, there's two things I do that I know annoy you. One is when I'm overly critical of deep striker measurements, and I will sit
Yeah.
there and make sure you were more than 9 away, where you're like, dude, I'm going to wreck this unit anyway. It doesn't matter. What are you
Right.
doing? Okay. And then the other is rolling individually for saves.
Oh my
What is
God.
it
You're going to kill me.
it's part of the rule set, Danny. I can't
Only
leave it
sometimes.
roll.
If you have to
Only
do it, it's
sometimes,
fine.
yeah.
But if you can roll multiple dice at the same time, you should. Don't be some kind of giant asshole that only oh my God, just the worst.
The best part is when you just roll them all one at a time. You don't even look at the dice, and you just maintain eye contact with your opponent.
Yeah.
I go to move, and I can just see Danny like see. But anyway, back to the point. What does Poland do? They're really like, what's an easy trigger for you to be like,
Sure.
oh my God, I can't believe you did that.
It's a funny thing, because he doesn't do it during like competitive games, like when we're playing, at an event or something. But sometimes the movement will be a little loose, I feel, or I've felt in the past, and I'm like, look, I'm not gonna be the guy that's like, well, you didn't take the inch going around the blah blah blah. It's like there's literally nothing. Like, I'm like, doesn't matter if I say anything, because then I just look like a jerk, because they don't get that backstory, So yeah, there's a couple of really funny incidents about that, essentially, where it's just like, oh well, I really thought you couldn't move here. Okay, yeah. And you just go with it, It's like, well,
You'll let that passive aggressive positive affirmation be like, oh, so you can just move like that, huh? Oh, cool.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Nice.
That's wonderful.
I didn't know your knights could just move over terrain. That's great. That's like one of their weaknesses, but you don't have it. That's pretty cool.
Or like
Yeah.
knowing that you're being streamed, you phrase it in such a way that chat just goes crazy. You're like, oh, look, they're on my side. That's crazy. Who would have thought?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing, is like one way or another, chat sees or doesn't see, or says or doesn't say. So like they're gonna have their opinion, and that's gonna be the law of the land, anyways. So one way or another, you just kind of have to live with it. That's the fun part. Is like we have a very.
That's fair.
I'm very proud of our chat. It's definitely not toxic. We definitely kind of keep the trash out, but they
They
are
will
also
come here.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Grim After Dark, guys. Just hang out there.
Yeah,
But
you guys are
but
all
they
chat.
but they're super sassy, right? And they're like, well, chat says this. I'm like, well, chat's wrong. I'm sorry. And so there's this funny back and forth between like us and this imaginary character that's actually like 1,000 people put together in one, and I love it.
Like the
Ryan and
Avengers
Adrian
versus
versus the Hive Mind.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. Exactly. But the thing is, like, it's a human hive mind and it's an internet hive mind. So it's like, honestly, it's like a 50-50 call if they're right. And the times when they're wrong, it's like super volatile and then they start fighting amongst each other. So, like, again, it all just adds value. That is like the secret role of the producer. And I feel so, I appreciate my producers because they have to be the ones kind of holding back this like tide of opinions and rules checks and like, you know, when we're playing the game, we have a kind of a better sense on like what rules we're using at what moment, things like that, and the producers having to like cut to different cameras and make all these decisions, and for them to like also have to process chat and decide what's a legitimate thing or what's not, or in some cases what actually even matters. You know, it's like, oh, well, you did this one rule wrong at this point, and
That's
so the
hard.
producer has to manage all of this, and that is a tough job. That's
Yeah.
a tough job.
Yeah, it is. Producer, thankless task. I know, like Danny,
Yes.
when we jumped over here, like, and we started kind of like be on the show for Frontline, and we like didn't know what was going to happen. It's really weird, just kind of showing up and someone else doing like all of the actual hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That's the thing.
so
You
thanks,
just show up and do
production
your
team.
thing.
Yeah,
Yes,
no
thank
kidding.
you.
Yeah. You guys can't see it, but we got a thumbs up from our producer, Richard. Thank you. Good times. So Warhammer obviously is part of like creating this great kind of streaming channel where you're sharing all this amazing content. There's kind of like a call for variety. How do you manage playing so many kind of different armies and kind of different things? Because that's got to lead into it too, where like maybe some of the chat's like, well, you know, I only ever played Death Guard, and I know you're wrong about that. And you're like, cool, this is my 7th game this week with 14 different armies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's a great question. The mistakes will happen because of it, and they used to bother me more, and now it doesn't. Like, oh, I try to do a good job of it, but I won't be like, you know, go home and cry. Not that I used to, but you know, feels like it.
Don't give them
And
that power over you. Don't give chat
yeah,
that power over you.
chat. But it's like it's a lot of things. I mean, it helps that I'm completely obsessed with Warhammer and play competitively, which kind of intrinsically means that you want to and need to know everyone's rules all the time. It's just the game's crazy complicated, so that definitely helps that I have like these other times when I'm like not on stream, but I'm like playing against these other armies or learning them or whatever.
Mhm.
And we'll do like little cheat sheets if it's something that we're not familiar with. You know, we'll make like a little notepad, or I'll just use pen and paper a lot of the time, where it's like these are the things you need to know, these are the strats that matter, just little references. And so you do that. But the other thing I'm also, again, very thankful that we do have is because it's a live show, we can also fix mistakes. And that's a thing that, you know, a lot of the kind of traditional battle reports, it sucks when it happens, and I totally get it. You know, like they miss a rule and then it like completely changes the way the game goes or whatever, or even if it doesn't, but people feel like it does. You know, that kind of sucks for everyone. And so we're luckily able to like fix the things. It was like Thursday, I was like, "Hey guys, here's the the new Speedwa Army of Renown. It's great." Oh no, it was the Blood Axes. I said, "Here's the new Blood Axe rules. Also, we're gonna try Speedwa, and we have like these cool shooty strats. So Speedwa, extra AP on the guns." And the chat's like, "No, it doesn't work on infantry." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, well that's good thing that we addressed that before top of turn 1, because this would have been really awkward otherwise, and stuff like that." So we're lucky to have that.
I know where we used to have Glacial Geek on our podcast kind of a bit, and you obviously met him obviously in Gibraltar.
Yeah.
I remember my favorite Phil face I've ever seen was he just recorded and kind of backlogged a whole bunch of bat reps to keep him going for a while, and then they dropped him a FAQ that completely how his army played, and his face when he realized like, oh. And then he just ended up putting a disclaimer like, "Hey guys, I recorded this before the thing." We're kind of like that thing. So the benefit of being live is you don't have to kind of do that there.
Exactly.
Bat reps, terrible. So tell us.
And it's just one thing I was saying, because it's funny you mentioned this. We, when 9th edition first came out, we did that thing where we did like 30 videos in 30 days, kind of introductions to armies, our first impressions, and we still get people that are like, well, the knights don't do this, and they like comment and critique the video based off of the game a year and a half ago, and they just haven't
Yeah.
bothered to check the date, and it's just like, dude, like, thank you for watching, but come on, man. And we're like in the video, we're saying like the launch of ninth edition. Here it is. It's like the closest thing we have to like timestamping anything. But yeah, it's always gonna happen.
There's no such thing as timestamps, right, Danny?
No, I don't think so. But I do have a pertinent question. We got a
Yeah.
question from the chat that's really good. Um, uh, Stay Handsome asks, I want to know Adrian's opinion on approaching the game when there's such a pervasive perception of negativity towards the current edition. So,
Yeah, that's a great question. I think
That is. Way to make me look bad, Slay Handsome.
right. There's a lot of things that you can do. One of it is obviously the way that you approach the game. You come at it. You can. I think the first thing to do is like mediate your kind of expectations and at the same time your opponent's expectations. So I see this a lot where people, if you want to take something that's like not good and it's not meta or whatever, that's fine. Totally do that and have that expectation that you maybe won't, you're not going to win the event or whatever it is. But it's also okay for your opponent to bring the broken, crazy thing because you're literally going to a tournament. I see people that take it halfway. It's like, oh, I want to play Scions because I love Scions. But then they also get upset at other people for not taking something else the same power level. So I think that's important. And then the other thing is like just the way that you comport yourself in the game. I'll toot my own horn for a second. Talking about this last weekend, I brought freebooters. I brought buggies, flyers to a friend, like, it's competitive but not competitive, kind of friendly YouTuber thing. And proud to say I won Player's Player, aka Best Sport, which is crazy that I got it with that list. And it's about being nice with your opponent and not being belittling either about like the things that there's this easy thing to do where it's just like, oh yeah, sorry man, like it sucks, like this thing's broken, I hate it, but I have to play it because it's good. Like, don't say that. Nobody needs to hear that. That's just like making everyone feel miserable. And so I think there's things you can do even in the game to kind of make it a more pleasant experience for everyone, you know?
Sorry, it's written down here. Don't belittle opponent.
Yeah.
I never thought of that before. It's revolutionary.
Right. It's crazy, yeah. But people like they mean it well, right? And it's like, oh, sorry, man. You know, even I've had it done to me where like I'm just getting wrecked, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Someone, oh well, you know, I played Matthew Geyer at SoCal with AdMech, and he ended up top 8, and he was like, he apologized, like, oh, sorry, man. I'm like, nah, it's all good. Like, we're playing to win. You brought crazy stuff, I brought crazy stuff, and I lost. It's all good. And you know, he was kind of expecting me to like feel really upset about it, but it's all good.
Yeah, and like Danny, I mean, you get weigh in on this as well, Danny. But like, how do you guys feel about the fact that we're currently at a place, and yeah, the kind of the data slate and the rebalance and the promise of quarterly updates is helping this a little bit, but we were maybe in like a 2-3 month span where we had maybe a quarter of armies being taken, having the opponent being like, I'm so sorry, I'm taking this. Which is such a bizarre thing. We're like, I'm sorry I spent $2,000 and hundreds of hours of my time to bring this army.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
I think you always have to mediate it, you know, and make your own calls. Like, for example, you know, my freebooters, in the end, I was running a little bit less of an egregious list. So post FAQ, I have to drop one flyer and 2 buggies, and that's it. And so if you make yourself a little less susceptible to these things, because they're going to change, it's going to happen, you know, you're going to be happy for it. Definitely don't go out and buy all these models because they're insane, you know, because the next week they're not going to be, and the next edition they're not going to be, and ultimately you're gonna have regrets.
For sure.
I've been playing this for long enough to know that it all comes back around again, one way or another.
And then Danny, I know we're talking to Adrian here, but like you like recently been like running AdMech pretty consistently because that's still in the army. Your moving company let you play for the past 3 months. Like how was your experience kind of on the other end of that? Because I mean, I played you a ton. You're not like a kind of like a whack player most of the time. You generally approach the game pretty well, but you receive some like true hate for that.
Yeah, and I get it to a point. Like, it is some bullshit, right? But like, at the same time, we're all coming to like these events to try and win too. Like, it's not like you're coming to a tournament and yeah, maybe your goal is 3 games, then just like don't expect to win 3 games also, right? Like that kind of making sure that you have realistic expectations for your performance based on the stuff that you're bringing. that Adrian kind of made the points of a little bit ago. So yeah, I mean, like I had a guy kind of just play a total non-game, which sucked. He just was so unhappy that I brought AdMech that he just didn't want to have any part of it. So
Which,
Yeah.
if you only knew how little choice you had in bringing AdMech, I feel like a different
I mean,
conversation.
so technically I had another army, John, so I could have played something else, but I chose
No one
not
had to know that. No one had to know that. You chose violence.
Could have been
So you guys,
canon.
every morning.
Tabletop Titans has been going for a while now, right? So we're kind of seeing some growth, some evolution. What are some changes you guys have made recently that like you're like, yeah, that's an amazing change in addition to kind of our brand?
Ooh, good question. So we, ooh, that is a great question.
Yeah.
We're always trying to change things up, try new things, and so you'll notice a couple months ago we actually stopped doing our pre-recorded videos.
Mhm.
We did do codex coverage and things like that, and they were like kind of doing okay, and people liked them, but people were really they watch us for the battle reports, right? And we said, well, you know what, this thing is like okay, but what if we just took that time and reinvested it back into the show? And that's kind of let us try a bunch of new things, new camera setups, new overview setups, and things like the Warzone intros, which are sort of functioning as like trailers.
Mhm.
And it really gets people into the game, and this is something we found is like even competitive players, and this has always been kind of our theory, is like everyone likes to kind of get stuck in this story. Some people like it more than others and have names for all their characters, and some people just it's like the bare minimum to play the game. But at some level, people really enjoy this, and so being able to spend more time on those clips of like the models and making it a bit more narrative, make it briefly narrative, so we're not like kind of stuck on it. And that's been something that's been a ton of fun to do, and B has been people have been generally very positive about it. So that's been fun because there was a while where we do 3 shows a week at least. I was doing at one point the pace was like trying to produce essentially 3 of those other videos a week, and it's just like boom, 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 one after the other. You kind of have to like almost assembly line some of these model shots, and there's just not enough time to give love to them. I'm the only full-time person. I do all the production essentially, and so it was not as much fun. And now I get to kind of take time with it, and I think it makes for a better show as well. So that's like the biggest thing in the last couple of months.
Yeah. And you're saying, and then we're going to check chat in here in a second for some more questions because I think we have some
Mm.
good ones going in. Danny, I know you're checking that way more than I am, but you just said that you're sort of like the only full-time person there, right? So like a lot of the production, the setup, the planning, that kind of falls to you. So
Yeah,
kind of take me through like what a typical day looks like for you, kind of as a full-time Titan of tabletop.
totally. So the hard deadlines all revolve around the live shows, obviously, and so Monday is kind of a planning day, getting the schedule set up. If I can get away with like working from home and prepping models, that's another thing that I'm sort of in charge of doing, which has been another kind of recommitment in the last couple months, where we said, we when we started this channel, we wanted it to be all about beautiful terrain, beautiful models, everything. And in the months before, we had kind of gotten stuck a bit more into this grind with all the new books of like, well, we have to show this new thing and this new thing, and the models were not quite as nice as we would like them to be. People were complaining, but people were noticing, and so I'm also doing that. So Mondays often will be like, we're going to show these models, we need to get them up to snuff for paint, working on that, planning stuff. And then Tuesday becomes more like a shoot day where I get there in the morning. We have the list kind of figured out. I, take down the battlefield from last week. So we do each kind of war zone lasts a week, so we don't have to do a full tear down. Again, another decision we made to kind of help amp up the quality of everything. We have nicer tables if we don't have to take them down every 2 days.
Mhm.
And so I'll get the armies all laid out and get everything set up, and I'll kind of go through each of the shots, each of the clips, and it'll be like get one kind of layout for the clips, do a couple units from each army, make sure it's not like, oh, 2 fast attack units back to back on the same layout, get that variety, go through all of them, go through all of them, go through all of them. And we'll have a couple meetings because we have meetings for both this channel and Hobby Titans, our sister channel. And then later on in the afternoon, I'll get the editing, which actually is pretty fast now. Got it down to pretty short, except for the war zone. And yeah, that one takes the most time, but it's also the most fun. The rest is like so close to being automatable by a program. But again, I haven't just had taken the time to kind of write that. And
think
then
his name is Bridger, and that's just rude.
Right? Well, the thing is, but then you also have to consider the time it takes to convince Bridger to do the thing that will eventually make your job faster. You know? All of the tech here, all of the like the Stream Deck and OBS and everything is all written by him. And so it makes sense to him, which makes it a little bit difficult when you bring in other producers and try to teach them the ways, like you have to like learn how his mind works to know how the software works. We're like, why would this, if you press this button twice and then go to the right, it just ends the stream. And he's like, why would you ever do that? That's not logical. I don't know. Don't do it on purpose. So we had a couple times there, the producer's like, button, and then the stream ends, which is like, well, that was.
Well,
But anyways,
luckily,
yeah.
viewers. I was going to say viewers of this show know that literally zero technical issues happen at any
nothing.
time.
Yeah.
Nothing happens here. Danny, I know there's some questions from chat here. Though I will say, you guys are really thirsty. You need to stop it. It's very confusing.
Oh no!
Geez, I'm curious. I want to know, what kind of shampoo do you use, Adrian? That's been a question I've seen twice
That's
now.
been a question twice.
Yeah, that's a real
That's
question.
craziness. Look. There's a facade. There's a facade, guys. I
It's
use
a
dandruff
wig!
shampoo. I have dandruff shampoo because I have terrible skin. Oh! Someone in the early days, again, when I was like always doing the same exact thing, and I would like gel my hair every single time. Someone was like, "Are you part mannequin? Like, what's wrong with you?" And I kind of, let myself go recently. So
Yeah. Get
comes
questions
out.
about your underwear, your shampoo.
Wow.
Grooming. Guys, you got to calm down. Like, I know we joke about PG-13, and we've already dropped our F-bomb today. We can't be asking people.
That's the only one.
Undergarments.
I thought this was a kids show.
Me too.
Yeah.
Off screen here is our giant inflatable characters. I'll point the right way.
Off screen is also your live child audience. Come on, guys.
That is right. Definitely not enslaved though. Anyway, something else that's being asked from the chat here.
Yeah.
What has Tabletop Titans? What lessons have you learned from Tabletop Titans? I'm sorry, is my terrible handwriting that I couldn't read.
Yeah, no worries. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot over the last couple of years. One of the things is we want to make this as enjoyable for us as well as for the viewers, right? And that was something we learned pretty early on, but it took us a long time to kind of figure out how to make it work. Ultimately, this is why we ended up doing live. Was when the channel started back in the day, Brian did like a few videos, Tyler by himself. We did a couple of videos, or I did a couple of videos with him, all pre-recorded, edited. And if you've ever done any of that kind of stuff, it takes forever. It is hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And it's like, well, we knew we wanted to make it something that we can put out a good amount of content of. And then we also knew we wanted to make it a business. We were like, we want to be able to do this as our jobs. And we're just like, this is either not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be feasible. And so we started messing around with live and figuring out how we can do that and how do you get the switchers to all work. And we learned a lot about how to just make it so that we could just roll up. Obviously we've kind of gone back to a bit more production as we were just discussing, but that's fine. Roll up, you play a game of Warhammer. There's 1,000 people watching you, but it's still, you're just playing a game of Warhammer with your friends. And that was a big thing, is that makes it obviously much easier to play 3 games a week, do 3 games a week, because they're just come playing Warhammer. We're doing the same thing we would be doing even if there wasn't cameras. And that's been one of the big things, because I don't think we'd still be doing it if we had to do 40-hour edits on every video, at least once a week or whatever, every 2 or 3 weeks. So.
And I know, like, Danny and I in sort of our day podcast, where we were lucky enough to be able to kind of review GW products, kind of right at pre-order weekend and everything comes out. Like the scheduling before that, the glamorous life of the GW reviewer is like receiving the book the day before the embargo lifts on it. Like doing like these products are so dense, so like trying to get it all in the thing and then staying up hours rendering and editing it all together, only for it to be like moderately blurry, and for like that's all the comments are. So you're like, cool, fine, awesome.
I know,
right?
Thank you.
Exactly. And they'll still say you're wrong because they have their like leaked version that they're looking on the computer, So
right. Okay, So that is my favorite thing. And Todd W, my arms look super long because perspective messes up because the set is one thing, but I'm actually just in front of a weird green screen. But yeah, like that's the weird thing. I've had arguments with people online about things to the point where I just now delete my comments when they're like, "Hey, it's actually this," and I'm like, "I'm actually looking at the book right here, bud. I can almost guarantee it's not."
Right. It's the worst when we do a live show on Saturdays, because it's exactly what you said, and then we have to now do it live, and so we'll like miss something, and they'll be like, well, actually, it's this thing. I'm like, look, I have just looked at this book and just barely had enough time to read it, and you're sitting at home looking at your leaks, on your computer.
Right.
So you guys did start receiving like review copies from GW, which I think we're allowed to say now because we're all very aware that we thank you GW for this free advertised copy for review.
Right.
How did that sort of change your channel and adjust things and kind of how you approached it?
It made things easier because day one matters so much. We knew very early on that day one mattered. Again, that was kind of our big breakthrough. Was 9th edition. Was just kind of getting out all the content as soon as we knew everything, release it. So that's the first thing people go to. And Brian had done an old video of the Tau book when it first came out. Basically, he did the entire video from like rumors and leaks and things like that. We were not GW people at the time, so James, if you're watching this is totally fine. And he like prepped the whole video. He bought it online the night it came out, midnight, checks it, fixes all the mistakes, and then immediately renders it and uploads it. And it was very, very successful. And so we knew timeliness was important. And so although it sucks having, less than a day often, especially as an American, to kind of review the stuff before we talk about it, it's still better than waiting till we have to see everyone else's content and then do videos off of that. And if someone gets something wrong, then you're saying the wrong thing. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, people have obviously been critical of reviewers and previewers and saying that like, oh, you're just like shills for Games Workshop. And I feel very proud of like the fact that we're not, like we definitely have said our fair share of things. We try to stay positive about the game in general. That's a thing, right? We're positive, but it's not like, if something is not working, we say it. We say it on our channel. And so it hasn't kind of compromised the integrity of what we believe in, which is being positive, but also like being real with people. Nobody wants to be lied to. And people aren't stupid. Contrary to what
for
other
sure.
people say.
Just to kind of jump in on that, because there has been this sort of ideal that like if you receive this review product and you like say negative things about it, and like Daddy GW is going to come down and spank you. You're welcome, Paul. But like that's like the furthest thing from the case. So like, how do you kind of get around that, where you're kind of in a situation where if you say something negative, you're like, oh, well, you're big enough that they can't take it away from you. But if you say something positive, then all of it's like, oh, you're just a shill for GW.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. We just kind of, we just go with it at this point, like kind of like you said, there'll be some people that they have their opinion, they want to say it one way or another. And then again, I feel like I'm, stroking chat's ego, but chat will also be real with them too. They'll be like, no, they say this thing or they say this thing, and they'll sort of defend us. Because a lot of the time when people say it, it's in the comments and things like that where we can't really respond live. Like they're going to say their thing. But luckily, I feel like we have a strong enough community that they also kind of correct that misconception where possible. And at the end of the day, people are going to be super negative then when we don't need them.
This is going to go to Danny, to you, and then also to Adrian. What is, just to kind of really deny all of this shillness, the worst thing GW has released in the last year?
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I really want to. If you know it, go ahead.
No, you go, Danny. You go. No.
Oh man, and see now I'm thinking like the worst thing is actually being like just it's bad, and like why would people take it? But the actual like worst thing,
right?
Oh, I don't know. You go ahead, Adrian. I'm gonna think about it for a second.
Well, it's an interesting thing that you say there, right? Because it's also distinguishing between a bad product or a bad rule or whatever. I think, and that's where Games Workshop is most concerned. It's not about saying, "Oh, this thing isn't a great rule," or "This isn't a good unit." Like that's not what they're worried about. They're worried about
Right.
like really nasty kind of vitriol. So with that, I will say the army supplements, like you know, the Cult of Strife is probably the biggest one. The armies of renown, I think, are a better design in the sense that you get bonuses to your army, but you also have to lose something to get it. Whereas Cult of Strife, for example, the supplements, it's just you get these rules and you get more rules. So it's just there's no sacrifice. It's more and more and more. And so I think that's a bit of a miss, which is funny because I think armies of renown were kind of intended to be like not the most competitive. But I would like that limitation on the supplements. Like obviously, if you have one faction in a book that has a whole nother chunk of rules that's added to it, it's more than likely going to be better than the others. And so I think that like concept it needs to be executed better on. I think the concept is okay, but they need to have some more limitations. So that thing is my biggest issue, honestly. Like imagine no Cult of Strife. Imagine no this Qatari Army of Renown is a bit weird because it's like genuinely amazing. But
It's
you get my point. Yeah.
Like no Cult of Strife. Stop. I can only get so happy over here behind this big desk.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean,
I would love a day.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree. I do like the supplement stuff. I'm glad that those came out. I just wish that they would maybe not do them for some of the most powerful subfactions already. So the Metallica supplement's fine because Metallica isn't like inherently great, but like Cult of Strife is the best witch cult too with the special character. And so like it's obviously the best choice, and then it also gets more stuff. It's like, well, then nobody takes any of the other witch like cults at all, right? So, but I just want it to be variants and that kind of stuff. I think that's fine. And
that's a great
if you're
point.
going to do it, more people need them too, right? Like it needs to not be maybe so slow.
I think we're at this point where, sorry. Briefly, we're at this point where when the first supplements came out, like the Cult of Strife one, they obviously wanted to make supplements for books that came out. And there were like no books. It was like all Marines and then Drakari. And they're like, well, I guess Drakari gets a supplement. But now we're at a point where they could potentially release like a grape shot of supplements for whoever needs help. Like Metallica was a great point, actually, because they weren't the best Forge World. And it actually puts them closer to on par with other ones. So that's a good point.
Yeah. Danny, well, what's your take on this? What is the worst?
All right. I wish that Games Workshop would do a better job of sharing what their like release schedule looks like, because I think that it's really hard for people to kind of I don't mean to say that they need to be able to anticipate stuff, but I think it's rough to like try and plan events and like kind of maybe like I think balancing stuff is a lot harder when nobody knows kind of what the release cycle is going to look like. Or when we're going to get like updates. Obviously now we have kind of a little bit more of a roadmap for that, but and I'm glad for quarterly updates, but we'll see if maybe communication kind of improves. I would like to see that.
Yeah. And let me just jump in on this here with some members of chat here. You're very, very wrong. Someone suggested there's lots of comments to this one here. Kind of lots of genuine, passionate answers to this. If you say Warhammer Plus, you are so very wrong. Yes, it's a slow drip release. And yes, the animation is not like a $2.7 trillion Pixar movie quality. But the Hammer and Bolter stuff, check out our catalog. We talked about this like a few episodes ago. So good. We made fun earlier about painting faces, but Louise Sugden's masterclasses are just amazing. And for $5 a month, which is what I spend on a coffee every day. So I would say that is an amazing thing. But kind of the flip side of that, we move towards positivity as I ranted away at it. What do you guys think is the best thing that they've done over the past year? And then Danny, you start.
I think the announcement of the balance changes was the best thing they've done this year.
Oh, that's not fair. That's such a good answer.
Yeah, so a different, equally good answer, Adrian, would be fantastic.
No.
Yeah, good luck.
Oh God. It's such a good answer because it's so true.
Yeah. Sorry if I stole
Hmm.
yours, man.
Yeah. Well, look. Busted freebooters aside, I love the orc book.
Oh,
Orcs are my first and my truest love, and it feels great to be able to play them again and be able to play them in many different ways. I the last time I was playing them when they were great was when you had the 90 boys and the looters and everything, which was cool, but it was like the only way to run them. Whereas right now
right.
I feel like, especially now that things are taking a bit of a hit, there's actually quite a few orc builds that I'm really excited to be playing. And so it's the book that I wanted for a number of years, especially after when the last book came out and I got all the buggies and then they were just trash. And now they're like, well, actually they're too good. But now there'll be some, limitations to that. So I'm like, cool, that's great. Let's just do it. I just want to play my orcs. So
How much do you think
orc
the
book.
FAQ fix that we saw coming out last week, where it really limited the buggies, it really limited the planes?
Yeah.
How much do you think that's a genuine fix, and how much do you think that was just a no one beat Sean Naden in the final in a turn? So just kind of like a super quick, okay, this
Yeah.
fixes it until we can really fix it.
Right, right. I feel like yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there where it fixes some things, right? So it fixes Manny Chima's list, or Manny Chisma's list, as I like
Mhm.
to refer to him. And so you can't spam out those buggies, and then it does some obviously for the freebooters. But then it's like I'm in a weird spot where, like I said, I didn't have as extreme of a freebooters list, and so I feel like I'm hit pretty minorly by it. I'm
Mhm.
like people are about to learn that the other buggies that we don't see are actually pretty good too. And that's going to be the next thing. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Like, you know what? The Boomdaka Snazwagon has 14 shots of the Squig Buggy shots, and this other one has a million flame.
Mhm.
There's so I feel fine about it. Like as an orc player, I feel fine. I feel good because hopefully it'll remove some of the salt, and it'll make it a little bit more of a game. So losing so many Squig Buggies is good. Losing so many flyers is good. Those are the two things that effectively ignore line of sight.
Mhm.
So your opponent can be hidden, they can respond, they can play the game. It's not just a turn one tabling, which nobody wants. Even if you're playing freebooters, you don't want it. And so I think it's a good change. Whether or not it's enough, I don't know if it's enough to stop freebooters because they're still pretty nutty. Just the sheer firepower is still pretty insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were saying orcs being your favorite army. How surprised were you at kind of the breadth and depth of that orc release? When we're coming out of Codex is coming out, we're like, you get a new lieutenant model, or you get a new character who's just sort of okay. This entirely was like basically pretty much an entire new range of orcs.
Right? It completely wild. I'm really happy with it. So obviously the first concern was, are there new boys? Are there Primaris orcs? Do my 200 orc boys, are they irrelevant, And I think they're being smart about it. I think they're being smart about it the way they were smart about Primaris, where it's like they're not a straight up replacement yet. Probably next edition or the one afterwards. It's kind of like, when Primaris first came out, everyone's like freaking out, like, oh, it's going to replace your army. And they're like, oh, don't worry, don't worry. They're actually really bad. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Next edition comes around. Like, oh, they're a little bit better, but. And then finally, it was eighth comes around, and people are like, please let us play with the Primaris, make them good. And then James is like, all right, hold my beer. We're gonna make them busted. And so I could see them doing a similar thing where they're kind of slowly introducing these beast snaggers. But in the meantime, they live harmoniously with the rest of the orcs, and I can still play my old stuff with my new stuff, and it's mostly just different. So what a shock and a surprise, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I say, Danny, I don't know if you're paying attention to chat here, but there is some confusion that no one mentioned that Black Templars were the worst thing that GW ever.
Oh,
Well, I
yeah,
was waiting for you to do that one.
Yeah, as it
To
has
be
been
honest.
running bit, would you say, where I'm just
Yeah.
pointed out why Black Templars are the worst. The fact that I've recently started a Black Templars army has nothing to do with why I'm not saying anything negative about them. However, it's what you're going to do. This is going to meta chase with the mid-table stuff. We're going to sort of wrap this up here a little bit. Danny, anything else you want to ask Adrian here real super quick? Or even fast or long, whatever you want to do.
Okay. If there is one thing on Tabletop Titans, Adrian, that you are really proud of, but nobody really knows about, what do you think that thing is? That's a question that we got from chat a
Oh,
while ago.
That's a great question. The match balancing, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the work that goes into that to not making games blowouts, and this is why, we don't kind of pin ourselves as like a competitive channel. We like to play competitive, but we're kind of willing to play whatever makes for a good game, which means if you have two terrible armies and they're both equally
Mm.
terrible, we actually have some of our best games. And it's very rare that we have blowouts. Bridger's a little bit of a loose cannon cop on the edge, so he's tougher to prevent that. Just inherently the way he plays, it always just turns into like some mega aggro thing that could make for a great game or it could be a blowout. So that aside, I'm really proud of the fact that we try to make everything a real nail biter. And we have John, who's kind of a recent addition to the channel, and while
Mhm.
he and I might be a little bit slow, our games are really long. God, they're really good games, and they're right down to the wire. So that's something I'm really proud of, and I don't know if that's people always realize. I almost like don't want them to realize. Like if you don't realize anything, that's a good
Mhm.
thing. But now, take a look next time you guys are watching and kind of see the things that we do to balance that.
Dude, Danny, that was a really good question. What else you got?
It's a good question.
I stole that from someone else, and now I'm spent. Sorry.
Thanks,
We're all
chat.
good. As Stay Handsome says, ABC, always be conceding. That's ninth edition
Always
right
be
there, up until this
considering.
point.
Considering.
The last thing I want to ask you here, and it's going to work in so well. It's going to slide into plugs so incredibly easily. It's great. We do have one of our wonderful watchers in chat right now who asked that, he's never really watched Tabletop Titans. He hadn't really heard of you before.
Cool.
Why should he watch Tabletop Titans? Like, what do you guys do to earn his attention?
Oh, you should watch Tabletop Titans because we have exciting, fun, epic games every single week with a bunch of players that they're not afraid to give each other a hard time and have a good time with it. And you can be one of those people in chat giving us a hard time. But very beautiful tables, good play, good friends, and an awesome community. Check out our Discord too. We have like 10,000 members, and it's a great place that has nothing to do with us, just the awesome people that live in our community.
Amazing. And where can people find you if for some reason they haven't seen you yet?
Oh, well, yeah, just find us on Tabletop Titans over on YouTube, and all our other links are in the description on the About section. So definitely come on in, check us out, and then come say hi on chat. We always appreciate it, and we do actually read it.
Yeah. So make sure to correct all of the rules errors you see.
Yes.
Just be very condescending about
We
things.
love that.
Yeah. And as we see, the Titans are dope as taupe. Nurgle Matthew approved, which yes is a dope thing we're going for now. And don't forget the great hair. Yes, your hair is embarrassingly good. We're not going to look at mine or Danny's hairline. Thank you for the faraway thing. So, as we're wrapping this up, Adrian, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to you, kind of learning about what you've been doing here. Definitely check out Tabletop Titans. Danny and I will be back next week, just as energized and entertained with something super amazing that you don't even know yet. It's going to be great, right, Danny?
Yep.
That's code for I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be amazing. So for Danny and myself, for Adrian from Tabletop Titans, for producer Richard, for our editor Tyler, this has been Grim After Dark, and we will see you Monday. Hype.